Guys, good Wednesday morning. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in downtown Charlottesville, our studio in the Macklin building, our audience Central Virginia-wide, Commonwealth-wide, countrywide, and worldwide on the I Love CVille Network. The show presented on a Wednesday by Ross Mortgage and Scott Morris. The guy, smart man, knows what he's talking about. Keith Smith on his way from a car board meeting. Will be here in a matter of minutes. Judah, let's go to the two-shot. Judah Whitcower is our director. If you want to use the studio camera, that'd be great as well. We appreciate you considerably, Judah, here on the talk show. Scott, good morning, my friend.
Hey, good morning, Jerry. What's going on, dude?
It's going well. A week over week, my friend. What have you been following?
So week over week, well, what we're seeing is the Fed is, there's a Jackson Hole meeting this week, which is kind of like an extra Fed meeting, and everyone's projected to see a more hawkish Fed, saying that they're going to continue on the rise in interest rates, and we're seeing the bond market react negatively to that, and more importantly, we're seeing the mortgage-backed security market react even more negatively, because I think they actually have bought into the fact that things are going up, and there's going with what Ford just did with the 3,000 executives and contractors they're letting go. The jobless numbers across the board are going to have a negative impact on foreclosures potentially. So there's some tightening on the mortgage end, so we're going to see some higher rates. So right in line with when you see a bunch of Facebook posts about rates are at, hey everybody, rates are super, super low, and then by the time that's posted, the whole world shifts.
That was a good first take. Juan Saraminto, welcome to the program. Questions and comments for Scott, put them in the feed. I'll relay them live on air. I have two in the can for Scott already waiting. I'm going to get to some questions that I have first. John Blair and Stanton, hello, welcome to the program. You bring up the jobs, and you bring up the layoffs, and you bring up the contractions. I mean, Apple's letting go of recruiters who do hiring. I'm starting to worry about that a little bit. Can we go down that hole?
Sure, but I mean, we're looking at, again, let's call it the frothy side of these businesses. That's what they're cutting. They're cutting.
You're saying they're too fat?
Yeah. Where there was all this money out there, so they could afford to like pack on and try to take the extra scoop of the ice cream. But now they know that there are tightening conditions coming, and to deal with that, they're going to execute to make themselves more streamlined going forward.
First time I've heard, especially early in the show, in kind of an opening take, the foreclosure word. You see an upticking there?
There's certainly starting to be more activity, but we're not there yet. And I think part of what we're seeing is before there's more loans laid out there, the investors are starting to hedge against that. I think that's what we're beginning to see.
How about your book of business based on kind of a pocket of geography? Central Virginia, Richmond, Roanoke, North Carolina?
I'm speaking more nationally on that. I truly believe we are in a more insulated area. The university, Lynchburg has Liberty. Maybe when you get further down in Roanoke, where you've got more manufacturing than you do here, government contracting here. A lot of what drives our commerce, our employment, isn't so directly tied to where we're seeing the layoffs.
Scott Morris, questions coming in. The rate questions, the one that gets most commonly put in here. We saw them, didn't they tick down?
They did. And then in the last day and a half, 2 days, they're spiking back up.
Rates, guys, are moving. How's the book of business from applications coming down the pipe?
Applications have been steady. It's about getting people under contract. Still the problem, at least in this area, Richmond, Northern Virginia, Roanoke, is still very competitive, and a lot of the same things. So we're starting to see more days on market, but a lot of that's coming from properties that either have a ton of deferred maintenance and need a lot of love, and somebody. They think they're interested in it until they get there and they're like, sheesh, this is a lot of work. Or properties that people had maybe unrealistic expectations for. They're priced a little higher than they should be, so there's not the level of interest or activity. So those you're seeing run 30, 45, 60 days on market. But if it's a prime property and it's priced right by the seller agent, then, you know, a listing agent, you're going to be, you know, it's under contract in less than a week. So that's where you're seeing that average of 10 days come from. It's not coming from the prime property is gone in less than 5 days. Your other properties are running longer days on market.
That's a good sizzle reel right there, Judah Wickhauer. Contract cancellations has come in as a question for you.
I haven't seen a lot of it. So our fallout is typically less than 20%, and lately it's been less than 10%. And that's not, you know, it's out there. It's and again, I think it from what I hear from other agents and other professionals on my end is it's more about people who get into a property that's got a lot of problems that where they're having home contingencies, where they're having home inspection contingencies that they can apply now, whereas they couldn't before.
How do you characterize the nature of the market? Balanced? We have balanced yet?
We're trying to get there.
Yeah,
but,
still sellers.
Seller's
advantage.
If the property's clean, it's going to have a lot of people that are going to have a lot of interest. I think we're going to see we'll see how high we run up rate related in the next 15 days to see what kind of effect that's going to have.
Another question, you get this one often. What's the expectation from Scott with what Powell and the Fed are going to do from a rate increase? Grayson, thank you.
It's going to be a more hawkish. I think that's what you're going to get a more guarded version. Now, one of the things that's being talked about is not the prime, but bank-to-bank lending, where there's some people in the Fed sphere there that feel that should have been increased 100 basis points and wasn't. So that's not the prime rate. That's like what the cost for banks to borrow from the Fed. They're trying to increase that rate. So that's really where you're going to see some increase, and that'll trickle down to consumers over time as well.
David Wright, giving you props. Welcome to the program. Questions for Scott, put them in the feed, relay them live on air. Interesting one. We touch on this on the I Love CVille show from time to time.
What's up, Dave, by the way?
David, we love you. I'm not sure who you are, but you're a friend of Scott, you're a friend of mine. This question has come up for Scott. We talk on this on the I Love CVille show. Jerry talks about a lot of businesses being for sale. Scott sees correlation with rates rising and those businesses hitting the market. That's a good one.
That's a good one, Jerry. You want to take that one?
I mean, I think the debt service these guys have has become less manageable, and I think it happened at the same time with the labor issues and the cost of goods increasing.
The labor issues haven't stopped.
I mean, they're just getting hammered like left and right, and I think people are just piecing out because they're tired, and I don't blame them.
I'm a Taco Bell fan, and I tried going to Taco Bell, 2 different locations on Route 15 the other day on a trip back from...
Closed?
Not closed. The lobby's closed, and I'm like towing a trailer with a 4-wheeler on it, and I'm like yelling at the window, "Can I walk up and order?" And it's like a whole thing, bro. It's crazy.
Waffle House is closed.
Closed?
5th Street Station, Waffle House, don't have enough labor. They had to shut it down. The one on 29 is still open. The labor issue has not solved itself, like you said.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's just it's a tough spot.
So if you don't have, what happens if we have a national emergency and there's not enough labor for Waffle House? How do we follow the Waffle House index in times of crisis?
You know, he jokes, but the Waffle House index is a real index.
It's a real index.
You want to tell them what it's about?
So if if there's a hurricane or some
this is true, guys.
Like some natural disaster that comes through and devastates an area, to know who's got power and how things are working, it monitor. And this is how the government and first responders, FEMA track where things are. Is what Waffle Houses are open tell you how bad the damage is in different areas.
He's totally right. Why don't we, just for fun and you know what? Let's turn this into a sizzle reel. I think people appreciate this. The Waffle House.
Not as much as I appreciate Waffle House.
I love Waffle House. I love Waffle House. Is an informal metric named after the Waffle House that I'm reading from the interwebs, and it determines the effect of a storm and the likely scale of assistance required for disaster recovery. FEMA legitimately uses the Waffle House Index to assess storm damage.
Look at the big brain on Brad. Did you see that?
Unbelievable.
Basically the same explanation.
Scott Morris knows what's up right here on the Real Talk with Keith Smith talk show. All right, so throw this to you here. We're positive guys. What is something positive we can put out there in the news cycle and the narrative about what you're seeing at your desk and your book of business here? Do you have some positive for us? Or are we still, is the positive uncertain?
I don't think I'm doomsday here.
No, I don't think you are at all.
I think this is, we're going through a phase. And part of that's tied to a lot of uncertainty in people and big institutional money gambling with the futures of the American people. Like, that's what this, they don't know how drastically things are going to affect each individual that with what they're doing with rates at the moment. They're gambling on a conversation that hasn't even been had that's coming Friday. So that's what we're seeing. So I think if you're out there, and I say this every week, and I earnestly mean it, if you are making a decision based on the needs of your family, talk to your trusted advisors, come up with a plan, put things in place that are going to put you in the best position to succeed. And if you're comfortable with a payment that's being quoted to you that's at high X number, knowing that in 12 to 24 months we're going to refinance this loan for you anyways and get you in a better position, then go do what you need to do to put a roof over your head, to be in a comfortable position, to separate from an individual or help a family who's gone through a death and execute whatever that is, and then in the future, we'll work with you to lower the rate through a refinance.
Ray Cadell, if rates are up, Scott, and prices are up, inventory stays down, what is the answer for the first-time home buyer who I believe drive what the real estate calls the ladder up move? Specifically for Scott from Ray Cadell, sizzle reel this. Your thoughts on that?
So I think that's been an ongoing problem and one that's been difficult to deal with. But the answer there is, again, what does your situation look like? Are we talking now, for Ray's question, are we talking about move up? Or are we talking about first time buyer?
I think it's the same, yeah. The first time home buyer, yeah.
So first time home buyer, the focus needs to be where can we find inventory that's going to match what you're looking for? And as rates go up, we're going to see some slowing of qualified purchasers, and we're going to see more inventory over time come on board. Prime properties are always going to go first, but these ones that are unrealistically listed, that's where we see our price reductions and we see more opportunity come. You're also seeing less investor interest as higher interest rates go, which gives room for the first-time buyer to get on board.
Does the first-time home buyer have an easier path to purchase now?
It depends on who you are as a first-time buyer. It's definitely it's becoming more difficult for certain income levels to find an entry point, but with less competition from investors and as the price, I think we are going to see the price point shift down, or at least a slow in the acceleration of the appreciation that we've seen. You're going to see the people who can buy at $300 to $350 and still qualified, it's going to be easier for them to get in the door.
Culpepper's in the house with Japrecia Terrell Clark.
Pre, what's up? How are you, miss?
She's watching the program right now. Here's a good question for you. This is from Lauren watching the show. And she says he talks about refinancing as rates go down and getting in a house now. How easy is it to refinance, and what's the time of window that you should wait before refinancing it to make it worth your time and money?
I mean, you probably want to be in the house for 6 to 7 months at least before you refinance. But that's not to say that that's not like a rule. And depending on the loan program as well, there's a lot. So if you're a veteran and you're VA, you're going to have the opportunity to use something called an IRRL, which is an interest rate refinance loan. That's a limited documentation, assuming that you've been making your payments, that we can go in and lower the rate. It's a faster, easier transaction. if you're somebody who was credit challenged going in, and maybe you purchased FHA, and then we could switch you to conventional as your credit situation has improved, and get you lower mortgage insurance and better terms. You'd have even a lower payment at a lower rate than you were originally at to begin with.
Well said. Are buy downs, Ray, and graduated payment products in our near future, Scott?
So they're already out there. The only way that they
Explain what that means.
So it's a little gimmicky, and the reason that I say that is the people who go into them are almost certainly going to refi that loan no matter what. And what makes them gimmicky is to make them really beneficial. You're using a lender credit, a seller credit. You're using money from the seller that you want to get in anyways to apply to those points for these buy down programs. But if you were to go in at the best rate that you could possibly qualify for and just get a reduction in the price, you're about break even either way. So you could save $10,000, or you could get the seller to, if they're given the concession of $10,000, apply it in that direction. There's a lot of takes on this. I looked through different mortgage groups and boards and conversations. I think it's gimmicky. It's out there. It can make people feel good. It's a marketing tool more than anything else.
This is a good question for you. Are the closing costs the same for the families that are refinancing after locking in a higher rate and then dropping to a lower rate? Are the same closing costs as what they had at closing for the first time?
You're going to be. It's a little bit lower. It's we use 3% as a guideline. You're probably going to be closer to 2.5%, depending on your situation. There's a lot of things that can affect that.
Very nice. Judah Whitcower, go to the studio camera. We'll welcome Keith Smith to Real Talk, fresh from a car board meeting. How was the mood at Carr in Hillsdale?
It was a very productive meeting. It's budget season for cars, so lots of numbers, lots of stuff to do that. So it was there's a lot of treasurer conversation. So it was good. But this is the time of the year that we set next year's budgets and dues and stuff like that.
How's so agents now watching on the program?
Hey.
How was the temperature with sales slowing?
So none of that came up. This
Okay.
was very numbers oriented meeting, right? We're trying to set budgets for next year. So that's really what we were tackling. The jurisdiction's already done it, right? They've done that already. So Carr is a for-profit, so their budgets get set at the end of the year for next year. So we're starting the budget process, which is always exciting. Yay!
What? I know, budget time. Good night. What data are you watching, man? A lot of data's hit in the last 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, the data I've been hitting is my phone's been ringing off the hook. So we've been extremely busy, particularly with listings. I think we got 3 or 4 more listings coming on, which is great news. But yeah, we talked about this on Monday. I know maybe Scott has starting to see this, and maybe since I'm late, this may have already came up. But I'm starting to see the emotional part of this starting to stabilize. Right, sellers are starting to realize, hey, I can put my house on the market because maybe I can buy something. Right, so that's a lot of the conversation we've been having with sellers, and then buyers. Instead of competing against 1,000 other people, it's maybe 1 or 2, and there seems to be a little bit of normalcy. That's the right choice.
What are you seeing, Scott? You agree?
Same, yeah. But again, I think that can be property dependent. If it's really choice, it's like, wow, this place is so nice, this is the right price point, you're still going to be multiple offers there. If it's a little, if you've got somebody who's sticking it to the top of the board and hoping that they've got some interest, or if it has some deferred maintenance issues, the roof, if there's anything that can kind of make it not so. If it doesn't seem like an opportunity, then it's probably going to be there a little longer.
So on Monday, we were looking at that. We focused on Charlottesville on Monday and some of the actives, and I don't have the exact data in front of me, so I don't want to misquote it. But you were starting to see some lower price point and higher price point homes in the city of Charlottesville. 30, 40, something like that.
That's the bell. Yeah, that's what. So basically,
Days on market.
if it's got a lot of problems,
Yeah.
more days on market. If it's overpriced, more days on market. Your choice is in that it's off market in 5 days.
We've been talking about this for years, right? It's 5 things, right? Location, price, features, conditions, and timing. And location can be one side of the street to the other side of the street, and that's kind of normal. Features and conditions are really impacting it a lot right now.
So the conditions. So when we look at these, what we're not seeing, or at least we're seeing less of, and this is indicative of that, is some of these things. I mean, we saw some real just POS properties that were scooped up by investors like right away. And now there's not an appetite for that as much. So it's sitting for longer. And because if the first time buyer, they can't, they're going to have a trouble getting into that because they can't afford to take on the expense of turning all this around.
But what about 5? I always get that.
203K?
Thank you.
That's absolutely an opportunity, and it's something that, I've got HUD consultants and contractors who are ready to go on those
So
properties.
talk about that. I've got a buyer,
Okay.
right? There's a $260,000, $280,000 home available downtown somewhere in Charlottesville, single family, detached. On that end of it, it clearly needs a ton of work.
Let's say it needs, so let's call it,
100,000?
let's say it's on market for $300,000 and needs $150,000 worth of work. We get agree to buy at $300,000. We have a HUD consultant and the contractor go out together. They separate their bid into labor and materials so that they can have a draw schedule. We do a 45-day close instead of a 30-day close, and the seller receives everything and closes like a normal transaction, and then the contractor has 6 months to complete the work.
Do they get draws through the process?
With up to a 5-draw process, and some of the initial work, like permits need to go get pulled. There needs to be some demo and some level. The contractor or the borrower will probably come out of pocket for a little bit to get an initial round of materials and some work done so that the HUD consultant can come back, inspect, and show that they can move to the first draw and move forward. They can get an extension on the 6 months for the work if they run into
Like they can't
supply
get
chain.
stuff?
Yes, like they can't. Now, that's a problem that we're starting to see come into correct. Home Depot, for example, has a 2.5 million square foot warehouse that they've built in Arizona, and what they have found, or what they're seeing, is that they over-ordered for all of this demand, and you're starting to see that demand shrink a little bit. So some of those supply chain problems when it comes to appliances and some of these other items are starting to ease and go away.
That's showing inflation's peaked. I mean, that's a sign of inflation peaking. And oftentimes they crap out housing first by raising the rates, and then everything associated with housing, the appliances, the labor, all that other stuff starts to pick up and starts gaining momentum again.
That was done intentionally.
That was done intentionally. The appliances are coming back now.
Yeah.
In the big box stores.
But
It was done intentionally.
you need to get it delivered the last mile.
And this goes back to the labor shortage that we're still facing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true right there.
Now I have a closing that we did that is part of a home shield home warranty program, and it's just a simple repair on a dishwasher that we're 3 months still trying to get a repair person in there. It's one of these home.
Dude, I got a Samsung refrigerator that stopped, like it still freezes, but the top stopped being cool. And I called a repair guy and literally over the phone basically said, look, if it's a Samsung, he's like, dude, I'll come out and fix it. It's going to be broken again in 5 weeks. Just go buy another. Just like stay away from the brand. It's trash. Yeah. It's like, he's like, I can come charge you the money, but just.
You appreciated that, though.
Oh,
right?
1,000%. Like,
right.
That's how, yeah.
That's how I want that kind of business.
I want the frankness in every transaction to be like that.
So I was excited today talking to you about this 203 program, because looking up was available in Charlottesville. One can get excited, right? Because you see, there's a couple of $300,000 or $300,000 under single family detached. They're all small, by the way, 800 square feet, that kind
Sure.
of thing. But I was excited about talking to you about that because if I have a first-time home buyer that wants to do this and has the runway to do it, time to do it, what does that process look like? So thank you for
Absolutely.
talking
Absolutely.
So Ray, he asked you those questions, and the reason he's bringing it up is because he's a guy that sold real estate at 17 plus rates. So both the products were very important to him to help make those deals happen when he asked about the buy downs and graduated payment products. So he, highlighting that with you. He says he had experience selling homes as you have when rates were that high. And this question has come in from Scott and for Keith. Can you guys go back to what you were doing on Monday where you were giving your takes on neighborhoods around the area? I think people enjoyed that quite a bit.
They enjoyed that. I don't have my laptop in front of me, so that's the struggle. But I can do that while you guys chat. I can go fire up my laptop.
No, that's okay. We can save that for another show.
We'll do that. We'll do that on Friday. We got Sigora coming in on Friday.
Tad on Friday.
Tad
right?
on Friday to do that.
Yeah.
But we'll save that for next Monday.
Okay, so talk to us about the board of directors. Talk to us about Carr. Talk to us about the agents there.
Yeah.
I was hyping you guys up yesterday. I think people realize why RP's having success.
Yeah,
They've heard you've had success.
Thank you. Yeah, so I can't talk too much, right? Because there's an agreement that we all have that we can't talk about that. So basically, unfortunately, the mood today was all about numbers, right? It was all about, okay, what is our budget going to be? Our treasurer reported in what our dues are going to be. I can assure you, there was budgeting in that to gain less real estate agents in 2023. So we the treasurer and the folks managing the budget has put that in there. So, that's a reasonable expectation. So I think the question you're trying to ask me is everybody thinking, oh, shift, right?
Yeah.
And they all are.
That's what I'm thinking.
Everybody's thinking, oh, shift. I think everybody in the industry has got that memo from some time ago. But I didn't hear any panic. I think it's something we talk about all the time. I think normalcy is good, balance is good. So I think there was a lot of that conversation around the table, but we were really focused on reviewing line item by line item of budget. So it was long and not too exciting.
How about your listing appointments?
Yeah, we're doing great. Let me rephrase that. Mrs. Smith is doing great.
You guys are always doing well.
Yeah, we're doing great. We got listing appointments. At least the sellers we're talking to, they rely on us as trusted advisors to get the market number right? So you'll see if you track our listings, very rarely do we do a price reduction, right? Very rarely, unless we made a pretty large mistake. But generally, we will sit down and have a conversation with the seller and bring our expertise to the table. And 9 times out of 10, they'll listen to us. I mean, nobody wants an overpriced listing. The seller doesn't want it. The market doesn't want it. Then you have to have this uncomfortable conversation. A shout out to Michael Guthrie. One of the lines I learned from him that we do in a listing appointment, do I have permission to be honest with you? And I'd rather disappoint you now at this is what I think the market is than have to come back and really disappoint you once we're listed and say, look, the market is telling us we're overpriced.
Are you seeing contract cancellations?
Not us, no.
Okay, and then pricing.
That's more a new construction thing, to be honest with you.
And how about price adjustments? And I know not you guys, but
yeah. So we talked about that on Monday. I think it did a week over week of 2 months ago versus that. There was actually there's a reduction in the last 7 days versus that same 7 days 2 months ago of the number of price changes. So again, I think the sellers are getting it. Real estate agents are bringing the information to the sellers on the end of it. But I'll tell you, we just did a contract yesterday, I believe it was, and we won multiple offer.
Nice.
We won it because we didn't put seller concessions in the contract. The other ones that we lost against had seller concessions in it. Are you seeing a lot of seller concessions coming in?
So we're getting it approved. We're seeing more seller concessions in contracts than we did, for the previous 2 years. But at the same time, to speak to the strongest contract, and that's what I offer, and that's what I talk to a lot of buyers about is, look, if you can do this, this is what's going to be your most successful route.
Yeah. So it was a learning session because we needed to talk to the buyer. It's actually cash, right, from our end of it. Cash deals do have seller concessions. So part of the reason we actually were competing against other cash offers, but they were doing seller concessions for whatever reason on that end of it. And I had to explain to the buyer that you realize you're offering this less, right? That took some time to explain to the buyer, and then they finally got it. So
Are you seeing a lot of how many home sale inspections completely back?
oh yeah, totally,
100%.
100% back.
Are you seeing the seller possessions completely gone?
We have not seen that. Completely gone is a pretty.
So not that common.
Let's say that's a better choice.
Not that common.
I don't know. I'm still seeing.
It's a price point thing too, right?
So it's a price. So higher end price points, I'm seeing it, and I've seen some other reasons for it, but a lot of it also is if that person selling is trying to go out and have a successful offer on the other end, they want some more time in the house in order to do that. So yeah, I'm seeing it on the buy side where I'm having to go, hey, look, we need to adjust the closing date or whatever to keep it inside of 60 days so that we can be compliant to do this and do that. But ultimately, yeah, I'm still seeing it in contracts.
What about domino deals?
Great question.
I don't hear about it unless I hear,
oops,
hey,
it's
there's a problem here, there's a problem there. Can you help solve this? That sort of thing. So I usually don't know about it until after the fact.
So we're seeing that uptick a little bit, which to me is really a good thing. So that means that sellers are trying to sell their houses and buy, right?
Yeah.
But it becomes a skill thing, and it's pretty tricky to go ahead and navigate that because not only am I closing Jerry's home, I got to see how Scott's home is doing in some other state or some other jurisdiction on that, because if you fail,
right, so
it impacts that.
I hear more like, so Joe and Jane are buying Sally and John's house. Joe and Jane no longer qualify, so the agent that I'm working with is telling their agent, hey, I want these people talking to Scott to see if he can fix the problem or if there's or what the problem really is. That's where things kind of come back to me. So I don't usually know until there's something else going on.
Well, and you made the illusion on Monday that there's a lot more of that happening, and in some ways it's not necessarily a bad thing for guys like you that are talented and
it's
experienced.
Opportunistic, yeah.
Yeah, and you've been there. I mean,
But
when
you know
what hits the fan, you want experience navigating the
So
you know what.
What I have seen is, I just had a conversation, this is 2 weekends ago, where there was a problem, but the problem should have been identified like day 5.
Yeah.
And it got dragged out all the way until like days before closing, and then it's like, then the domino effect starts, and how does that get solved? And which is a benefit if you have, then a buyer that is working, where we've done everything on our end, and we're like, okay, well, we can go in and close this in 15 days. So
and you get an extension of the contract.
Yeah. So we'll take over.
And you look like a superhero.
Right.
And then next thing you know, you're getting business from it.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Right. And that's why these guys are going to do well. Or they are doing well.
So no longer qualified. Talk about that. Is that happening? Because that really didn't happen.
That's a rates thing, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, so.
Or they've done something, or
I mean, it's probably not the credit card bought a car thing.
Yeah.
Rates moved on that.
So if a pre-approval goes out and they were like, this is everything has to like check, all the boxes be checked to make this work at this tippy top price point that they're trying to hit, and then all of a sudden we see a huge move in rates, that's when all of a sudden these conversations are, and this has happened all year. It started in March, and here we go, where, hey, look, here's where we need to be shopping now. And that's the do not qualify.
Again, I showed up a little late today, but are you kind of still holding your prediction on on rates, on mortgage rates? That you've been calling
You've been
them.
on, right? Yeah, on point.
So
It's E.F. Hutton, right?
I think
When
we're getting
Scott
some.
speaks?
I think we're getting some.
That's an
I've
80s thing.
I said there was going to be a lot of volatility. I said I thought that we were at the bottom, but we're going to see a big spike. I think we're in the middle of a big spike right now. A lot of that's because we got the U.S. 10-year was at 3.5% back in late June, early July-ish, late June, and we didn't see quite the negative rate impact that we're seeing in the last 2 days at that time because the mortgage-backed securities market was handling it better. The investors were handling it better.
They've kind of priced it in kind of thing, right?
Now we're at 3 1/8, not quite, and rates are being dramatically impacted. And I think that has to do with some forecast on where they see the economy going with future jobless claims and that sort of thing. And that, again, that's me speculating. Who knows? It might just be volatility, and 2 days from now things settle down a little bit and we kind of come back to normal. But there's some pain being felt right now for sure.
I know a couple of doctors of economics that speculate too. So,
I was going to bring up Dr. Yu. Lawrence
Yun.
Yeah.
Lawrence Yun.
He was all over the news yesterday.
Yeah.
He's the National Association of Realtors chief economist.
Considered one of the top economists in the world, top 5, I believe.
I mean, and he had, and it speaks to your Inman article where like the experts are saying this is the most confusing market ever.
Well, that was
Where it's
Gary
like,
Keller said that
Right.
in Austin. So if those who are in the KW, Keller Williams world, this is Mega Camp Week. I didn't go because we were traveling a little bit too much before, and Jerry would have melted and said, "Hey, by the way, I'm taking another week off."
I would have been so upset if you had done that. But I mean, they said it's a confusing market. Vanessa, hello, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Because the homeowners have massive equity,
Yeah.
they can sell their houses, but at the same time, people can't buy them. Affordability is an issue, and we're in a recession from a sales standpoint.
And inflation.
And inflation.
You're 100% right. When somebody like Gary Keller, who's been at this, very successful, been at it for 40 years, says, "I've never seen this before." Not that I'm in anywhere near the quality. I'm no Gary Keller, right? But I haven't seen this in 35 years, right? This is the pieces of the puzzle are kind of. It's kind of like you've got a 500-piece puzzle and you got 400 in it. You can figure out what the picture looks like, but you can't finish the puzzle,
right?
Because you lost the 100 pieces of puzzle. I totally shot that from the hip.
We knew what you meant
on it, but that's the thing. The market is moving along. It's not going backwards, but there's pieces of these puzzle that are missing that we can't really use to forecast or crystal ball things out. But if you read the rest of that article and you kind of track some of this stuff, it keeps on focusing to what we've been talking about for quite some time. Trusted advisors, the basics matter, right? In your industry, in my industry, the basics matter. Silly thing like if a client calls, you call them back, right? Just simple, basic rules of doing business. Be professional, be caring, and be trustworthy. And you will do very well. What did we look at last year? I think we looked at Charlottesville the last 2 months versus 2 months the year before. We were 10% up in value. Maybe it might shake out around 8% at the end of the year. It's still 8%.
Still a lot of money.
It's a pretty decent increase.
What do you think there, Scott?
So specifically to the homeowners who have a lot of equity, I think the targeted point is those in townhomes who didn't downsize or are looking to move up. There's a lot of opportunity there. Someone in a more rural area who wants to become closer to town, who's been in the house for 3 to 5 years, I think those are your most qualified buyers or sellers than buyers, because they're going to be bringing the cash ability to make a good, strong offer, even though they're home sale contingent. And as we see more days on market, we see more home sale contingent offers being accepted. I think which leads to the domino effect, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
We talked about on Monday this thing that scared me about folks using their homes now again as piggyback.
He put it on our radar first. Scott did.
Are we seeing that pick up a
Because
little?
of the solicitations coming nonstop.
Oh, better believe it. And
That
I
scares
think,
the heck out of me.
Well, that was I brought it up as far as that scare. I think that's the next domino in like an economic collapse. Is you have all of this equity, you have these non-traditional mortgage companies, the Rockets and others of the world that go in and they offer a product to tap into that because people are starting to run more credit card debt. Yeah, they don't care.
It's the reason you want to use a trusted advisor, the reason you want to actually talk to a live person.
And
like
as
Scott.
they drain that equity, 5 years from now, people who no longer have a parachute and have gotten themselves back in the same trouble that they used the HELOC to get out of, you're going to see that's where I see the first. That's where I see the first domino fall.
Yeah, I'll get myself into trouble, what I'm about ready to say. I think you should not be allowed to go to get a HELOC and take I know this is not popular, take $100,000 out there to go buy a $100,000 boat. If you want to take $100,000 to increase the value of your real property.
Well, you could take a HELOC
I know that.
and pay off your credit cards. That's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad
The
thing.
bad thing is, to Scott's point, if you then get the
go
credit
back
cards
into
jacked
credit-
backed up.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with refinancing to pay off some
I'm
some
talking
high interest debt.
about going out and buying a brand new
So
Porsche.
the boat rule is if you cannot afford 2 boats, you shouldn't buy 1 boat.
I thought the boat rule was
we
always.
talking about my boat again?
I'm talking about,
He called me up the other day.
I thought the boat rule was always be a friend with someone who owns a boat and don't own a boat yourself.
Well, that's part. Yes, that's
Isn't
fine.
that the boat rule?
That's one
He
of them.
called me yesterday.
Keith has a boat.
He
for
called me
those that wanna
yesterday and he
know.
goes, "Hey, I heard you're not using your boat so much."
Did you use the boat? Oh, did you buy the boat?
No. We
Just taking temperature, man.
Okay, there
He
you
was
go.
taking temperature.
Everything is
He
for
was
sale
taking temperature.
in the studio at this
He was
network over
taking
here.
temperature.
And Yonna would say, "Sell the damn boat."
The good news, I don't think she's listening.
She would say, "Sell the boat." Keith's not going to sell the boat. You would never sell that boat.
You know what? To be honest with you, I haven't used it in 2 years, so
Well, you should sell it to the
I
man.
should sell it.
Sell it to the man.
But we're
and
not
he'll take you out.
We're not going to sell it because I have unrealistic expectations that I'm actually going to use it next year.
You may. You've earned the time.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Well, I offered him if I get it, if the engine needs to be, it's stuff needs to get done to it, I'll take him fishing.
Scott, what is the investor rate with good credit at?
Ooh, great question.
Today,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 7.5%.
Wow.
That's off the top of my head. I haven't actually checked pricing, but I
And
know,
20%.
and 20% down.
Yeah.
20% down, 7.5%.
That's why you're not seeing these 260.
It might not be quite that high, but it is. I saw a ton of boards yesterday, just other people's pricing, and at or near 7.25. 7.25 is probably close.
What's the threshold where the investor's just going straight cash and saying straight cash, homie?
You got to look at
Randy Moss.
who else. Who these investors are. Look at the number of people. Look at all the marketing and the agents and everything who have said, let's talk to you about this great opportunity. And I'm not here to bash that. But I am saying that the people who are borrowing to get in the game have a more difficult time making that property cash flow at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's what we talked about a couple of shows ago. I think Johnny Arnalis chimed in.
Yeah, he said the numbers didn't make sense.
The numbers just don't make sense. It's just,
Which is why you're seeing again
More
these
inventory.
these properties with a lot of deferred maintenance,
Yeah.
more problems, sit for longer because they're not the cash investor isn't going in and just scooping them up and trying to turn and flip them because they know that what they're going to have to try to get out of it for, trying to make it make sense is the problem right now.
To an example for that, I know a couple of folks that actually bought flips, quote unquote flips, about 8 months ago. Actually advised them against it, and decided to do it, decided to use their cash, And the problem is from what they bought it for and what they needed to fix it up for, which always costs more than what you think it's going to cost. On the end of it, they now price themselves out of the market. And they're actually putting them into rentals.
So this is why, and this is the traditional view on this, is if you can find something off market through a networking group
Sure.
or whatever, that's where your best deals are always going to come from the investor perspective, rather than, something that
That's why you see our boy Kyle Miller hustling on social.
does a great
And
job.
respect to his game.
Yeah.
I mean, he hustles. I respect his spirit.
So-
He's always trying to move in shape.
But the difference between these folks that I advised against and Kyle Miller, he knows how to renovate a home.
Oh, and he's got 3 carpenters and 3 electricians and 3 day labor. He's got.
At one point, he worked with us.
Oh, I didn't know that.
When we had way back.
I had no idea.
Yeah, just swinging a hammer. So he has the skill to do that. These other folks, my advice against them, after they asked me, "Will you help me do this?" and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm out of that business."
Asked you to remodel?
Yeah.
You're like,
I
that's
said I can refer you to ISC.
I can tell you what to do.
I can
tell
refer
you who to call.
I can tell you who to call. I tell you to call Interstate Service Company, and they'll do a great job for you. But they wanted to do it themselves because they saw dollar signs, and I was right. I said, whatever you think it is, double it. And sure.
So what are they doing with that? They're going to rent it?
They're renting it. They don't have any choice. Now, the problem is they borrowed money. They put cash into
Does
it.
the rent cover the debt service?
I have not been asked to get
To be
involved in.
determined.
I haven't been asked to get involved in that, so we'll do that.
So time will tell. So Scott, you know what? I'm feeling positive energy from you. I always feel positive energy from you. Your business is doing well. I'm feeling positive energy.
So I'm feeling positive. Now, here's something I see interesting. So I always scan the ticker on MSNBC when we're up here. And in a testament to how volatile rates are, they're not even running the 30-year that they usually do.
That's right.
In conjunction with the rest of NASDAQ, US 10-year, 2-year, WTI, Brent, every index that they usually show, they've pulled the mortgages off today because it's not in touch with reality. So, and what I mean by that is, when I was talking about when the U.S. 10-year was at 3.5%, mortgage-backed security market was better suited, or at least they were more comfortable with where things were. And what we've seen in the last 2 days, the investors are all over the place. So I've seen from broker shops who wholesale. A lot of them use the same. I say that, and then 90% of them use UWM anyways. But mortgage rates are freaking out right now, to the point where MSNBC won't run the ticker for what rates are actually running at today.
They don't want to influence it?
Because they don't,
Too
because it's
volatile.
not a real number.
Yeah, got changed 5 minutes later.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
sure.
we need to get through Friday's Jackson Hole meeting and see what the
So we're
Fed's
talking
truly
about-
going to do, and have everybody bring the conversation back to a normal level. So my conversation with my clients today, if somebody came in a contract overnight, said, hey, here's what we're going to do, I would say, hey, I know that I can't promise you that things are going to get better, but I would not suggest that we lock a rate now until we get some more normalcy in the market. If things change 100 basis points between now and Monday, I'll credit you that, and we'll work on it. We'll come up with a solution.
Say that slowly,
So what?
because that's an important thing what you just said.
So let's say that if I missed it by a full 1% of your cost on a $300,000 loan to $3,000, I would say, hey, look, I gave you the best advice I could, but it turned out it wasn't good advice. I'm going to help soften this blow,
So
and
this
I'll work
is
with you on some of
why
that
you
cost.
need a trusted advisor.
Scott's good people.
Because this app that you do, that whoever does to borrow
And you
money,
don't have to do that. Because you would be
no,
given
of
a
course not.
consultation based on where the market was at that moment.
Yeah, but if I give you bad advice, we're going to work on it together. But at the same
think
time, I
that's
don't
huge.
think it's bad advice at the moment. I
Right.
think right now things are. If it's so volatile that they won't run it there, and the VIX is freaking out. I mean, I think that today's the time to float. Not
if that was a bet against you, I wouldn't take it because you've been pretty much spot on. And-
100%. Man does very well here.
So we've started the end of last year. My concern for the market was inflation. how you seeing inflation going? You think we're
I don't think it's there. I think that's
Don't
what
think
this
it's
whole.
peaked?
I think that's what this whole. I think that's what's driving all this volatility is the fact that everybody thinks we're there and then we're not there, and the Fed's commitment to be more hawkish in the raising of interest rates
Short term.
is short term. Is what we're seeing driving all this volatility.
So your overall thing is we're not quite done yet. We're still probably going up a little bit, right? And you're thinking maybe next year it might come down a little bit, or
We're going to come down next year, and it won't be as steep as what we saw in 2020.
I got to tell you,
But we shut the whole economy down, and the Fed did some crazy
Kelsey
stuff.
says
created
this
all these
is-
problems.
Sorry to interrupt. Kelsey says, is the refinance process as time consuming as the loan process to buy?
No. And while I'm going to say typically no, certainly it can be depending on an individual's specific situation. If, no is the short answer. No, typically no, it's not going to be.
I haven't had a chance to read into it in great depth because I think it's happening yesterday, but it looks like the Biden administration is trying to do something about student
Oh
loan.
man, Scott, you're gonna get Scott started over
No.
there?
I haven't even read it. I don't even know what they're
You
proposing.
get Judah started on this over here.
I don't even know what they're proposing.
They're gonna
10 grand.
10 grand for
Under
income,
a certain income threshold.
$125,000.
Yeah.
And anybody who makes under 125,
K who's carrying more
it's
than
a flat 10 grand off the
and
top
it's
of it.
probably going to be in government. So if here's where they really probably screw you is if you went and refinanced that out of government held student loan debt into a private loan, you're probably not getting that money back. But anyway, I'm not going to go down this road.
So it's only government backed.
I don't know what they do.
Got
I
it.
don't know.
Okay, the reason I bring it up,
I don't want to talk about it.
got it.
I figured he didn't want to talk about this. It's not.
So those Mets are doing really good.
This
Hey,
is it's a hot button. And another thing that you got to ask is the 10,000. Are you going to have to report that as additional income on your taxes once the debt is wiped off your books? I mean, are people considering this? Like, if he's just going to clear 10 grand on your student loan debt, is that income?
The reason I bring it up is how much is student loan debt impacting the loan process now?
So $10,000
That's really where I was
is
trying to go.
$50 to your total debt to income. So for what they're doing isn't that beneficial.
That's kind of what I was
I
thinking.
played squash with the first year at Darden. I mentioned this to Judah. I'll throw it to you guys. He took out 2 loans for the first year, 1 year of Darden. And this includes living expenses, tuition, room and board,
that's gonna be a
everything.
big number.
What do you think the number is?
$45,000.
No,
What do you think?
No. It's at least 6 figures.
$117,000.
At
Two
least.
different loans, $117,000.
At least 6 figures.
And it's going to go times 2. It's a 2-year program. He expects to come out $250 in debt, and he's going to make that in $750 payments until it's paid off. It's going to take him forever.
It
It's
depends
forever.
on.
You know what the rate is? You
So-
know what the rate is?
7%.
Yeah, 7%. 7%. Think about that.
Oh, so 100.
And 2 documents, by the way.
And it
So-
took him no time at all to get.
So
Most likable 27-year-old you've ever met, Scott.
So here's the deal.
He's telling me this story, and I'm like, look, dude, and I didn't want to be the negative Nancy.
So what depends on, where is he going? What's he, is he going to
Yeah.
be making $300K a year?
He's going to be making, he expects to make that.
All right, so he's making $300,000 a year. That seems.
And he needs it to get into that job. They
There
won't
you
even
go.
look at him if he doesn't have it.
Here's so that I don't
But it's a
mind.
vicious cycle, though, because
That I don't mind as much. Here's what I got a problem with. I got a problem with your social worker who has to have a graduate degree, your teacher who has to have a graduate degree,
And he'll never pay it back.
And these people who are getting pushed 6 figures into debt, who are only going to make $60,000 to $80,000 a year on top of, and then they got to try to buy a house and do all that stuff's never getting paid back. It's trash. And it's a government forced problem, not only by the demands of the job requirement, but also for them facilitating the universities in scamming people for this money.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was in the time of
a
great,
racket.
unpleasantness, everybody was told to go get an education. right? And the price of, but we're having this conversation with our daughter and our son-in-law, right? He's 500K.
Yeah, but he went substantially more. Like the MBA program is 2 years. How much did your son-in-law have to do?
Oh,
after undergrad?
I think he's been in school since he was born.
Right. How many
Yeah. Oh my God, 12 years.
Yeah, so if you're going to be,
But he's still-
if you're a doctor that specializes, you're going to be $300,000 to $500,000 in student loan debt.
And the tough thing is he's not going to earn immediately. We're like this guy, this 27-year-old. I'm not obviously going to say his name. He's going to earn in 2 years. Like he does this for 2 years, goes 234, call it 250K in debt, and then he starts off 300.
Yeah, so since I know a little bit about real estate and I know a little bit about national real estate and all this stuff, we are having this conversation. That's part of what we did out west with our daughter and our son-in-law. And to your point, our daughter is a teacher, right? Required master's degree. She's got like maybe 40,000 or something like that
Scam.
left. The reality of it is they're going to come out of where they are, with nearly six figures. They're nearly 600 grand in debt. And the conversation we're having about we're looking where they're going to go is where can they get the most money, and the cost of housing is the least, the cost of living is the least, so they can start eating that away. Where if
You're saying where they have the highest earning potential, the cost of living is the greatest.
Lowest.
No, they're trying to thread the
highest
needle.
earning potential is
Potential
usually the highest cost of living.
Highest earning, lowest cost of living. Where is that?
Where
I
does that,
understand that, but if you go to the highest earning potential areas,
your cost of living
Typically.
is typically the highest.
and you're just chasing. You're not catching.
chasing it.
You're not catching up.
Right, you're
So what
chasing
we're
your tail.
having, trusted advisor conversations is looking at a 3, 4, 5 year stopgap, where you can get as much money as you can, but your cost of living is here, so you can start eating away at this $600,000 because it just
That's the nut.
Oh yeah, it's five. I rounded it up. It's 5 and it's 540 to be exact, somewhere around there.
Paul McCarter 100% agrees with Scott's take on the racket, pushing higher education or pushing degrees, expensive degrees that don't translate to ROI.
Well, you never used to need that in teaching, right? You never needed a master's degree. You just needed a basic.
It's like, I think, Paul, your wife is a counselor, right? I believe she's a counselor. She says there's so many professions. He says there's so many professions where the degree doesn't make you better at the job, but it's forced upon you. That's what your point was.
I'll soapbox this thing till for another hour and 20 minutes. But part of it is they enabled these universities to go out and have the endowments that they have, be these huge property owners. The University of Texas is about to overtake Harvard for being the richest university in America. Why? Because they purchased oil fields, and they're still enabled by government money to go in and charge what they charge as far as tuition and boarding goes, and it's an absolute 100%
and all this discussion.
We'll do it locally.
I was trying not to bash the University of Virginia, but they deserve it just as much as everybody else.
They're purchasing land left and right and not paying taxes on it.
Scam.
Well, that's half. That's maybe yes, maybe no. Yes, it depends if the foundation. The foundation is buying it, they're paying taxes for it. The university is buying it, then they are not.
They're not. And that's
you don't think one of the most prestigious law schools in the United States of America has basically backdoored and set up every single thing that they can to protect them inside of this?
Look at you.
Of course.
Scam.
100%.
Okay, so how about them Mets, guys?
I appreciate his passion.
Yeah.
It's something that needs to come out.
Yeah. So, but they tend to move it from the university to the foundation. So they do pay taxes. And oh, by the way, when they move it to the foundation, they have to apply, zoning laws apply, so forth and so on. When it's owned by the university, which is the state.
Scott's comments are resonating with a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people are agreeing here. Yancey is saying, if you want to make healthcare cheaper, make healthcare education cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
Which is true. I mean, if you're going to have doctors that are $600K in debt.
Well, he's 5, but yeah.
Make healthcare education cheaper. That'll make healthcare cheaper.
I mean, there's a bit of an insurance problem as well that profits billions and billions of dollars and backs them denying people actual coverage.
That's why I love what Mark Cuban's doing with that pharmacy idea, where he's only charging a 15% markup on the drugs. The Mark Cuban pharmacy, it's brilliant. Cuban trying to flip the pharmacy model on its head, and Paul's wife is a social worker by trade, usually on the top of the list for the least profitable degree that's out there. But she makes a hugely positive impact, though. Paul.
It's a passion.
It's a passion.
Without doubt.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're having this discussion, and guess what we need? Plumbers, electricians, HVAC.
I mean, that's not going to happen anytime soon. And he did a sizzle reel that I got some feedback from at the dinner table. Sizzle reel that my wife watched of Scott's about subsidizing the small builder, and she's like, he's right.
Yeah.
The one that we just published a few days ago. So I don't see that problem being fixed anytime soon.
No, we're 10 years behind the curve on having that problem even begin to be fixed.
What I'm trying to make is compounded, right? So you have all these people going to school with all this huge debt. Plus, we don't have enough. You can't just pivot from that and say, I'm going to be a plumber or the plumber. It's just.
Well, right, because and that goes back to the point taken inside of that, or part of the point taken inside of that reel is the people that come into these entry-level skill trade positions, they don't show up with a plan. They weren't like, hey, man, I've been to school to do this, because they're probably already connected to someone in some fashion who said, here, go do this.
Their uncle's a plumber.
Their uncle's a plumber. Yeah. They get connected in. They walk in the door, no driver's license, no nothing, saying, hey, dude, I will be a hard worker, help me. And you're trying to hope that you can turn this person, that you can grow them into that skilled trade over time. So it becomes the small business owner's responsibility to then raise them.
I know. I've been there, done that.
I know.
With you.
Yeah. I've been that delinquent. I understand. I know what it's like.
Yeah. That whole foundation block story keeps running through my head. It's like
good story.
About this is.
I'm like, oh my God, how much more of that?
Microcosm for the healthcare issues. Viagra is covered 100%, but insulin covered 50%. What's wrong with that picture?
Oh yeah.
Just put on the feed right
there.
Yeah,
well, it's a family show, so we'll
I mean, but it's a great call. It's a great call. You brought it today. What do you say to the folks that subsidizing always raises prices? Because that's being put on the feed.
It depends on how you subsidize it, right?
So in that take, I said this goes against everything I politically believe in.
Yeah, because Scott's a libertarian.
I don't disagree with the fact that subsidizing always raises prices, but I think it's worth a study to figure out where the raise potentially goes if the goal is to continue. If the goal is to continue to put out housing to keep inventory attainable at or near the bottom end. All right, so in the fact that subsidizing always raises prices, so what you're going to get is builders who do what you took from that 15-second reel or 3-minute reel, whatever it was, that then take the money and inflate the price, but it needs to be pushed towards skilled labor, and someone smarter than me needs to vet this. But I'm telling you, if the government's going to get involved in housing, that, at least at some stage, is the best way for them to do it.
What about a subsidy for growing the vocational programs, right? When I was in high school, the vocational programs are there. If you don't want me to finish.
No. I agree with you there, but that's how we got into this 6-figure collegiate cost, and that'll somehow trickle into trades the same way that we have. I agree that it's not a perfect answer.
So my nephew in Vienna, Austria, when he was in high school, he took the vocational, and in Europe their vocational system is par excellence. And it actually walked out of high school with basically a 2-year degree, but he's a diesel mechanic, right? And he's living in Germany right now, making 6 figures, it's very respected profession, right? On this end of it, and it started at the school level.
We've got a technician shortage in America in the automotive industry that is
There's a shortage everywhere.
20 years.
We
in the
can't even
making.
find somebody to teach a K-Tech class.
And now the problem you have with the electric vehicle that's being pushed
Different
is
mechanic.
you've got an entire skill set of people who are gasoline and diesel who then are having to relearn and readjust when one of their biggest problems is diagnosing electrical issues, and then you have no one trained at a vocational level to come in and diagnose and work on these vehicles. It's a huge problem.
Well, you're 100% right. We are in the market for an electric vehicle and probably not going to get one because of that reason at that end of it. But I think Tad's on Friday is going to talk me into it.
So what you're going to see from a manufacturer aspect, they're going to stop repairing, they'll start replacing it, and it'll be so warranty and all these problems nobody's going
push you to it.
Nobody's going to fix anything. They're just going to say, all right, well, it needs a new one of X, and they just take out that and then throw a whole thing in.
It's funny you should say that. I have a buddy of mine that has, I'll leave the brand out of it, but an electric vehicle hasn't been working right, and they literally just said, you know what, pull out old computer, put in new computer. And
it's going to be the only way, because they're never going to have technicians who are going to be able to diagnose their problems.
I love it. Keith Smith and Scott Morris on a Wednesday. Plans for Friday. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I'm excited about it. We're going to have Sigora in the house, and I don't know much about it, but there's apparently a couple of big announcements coming from the company, some new product lines, so I'm excited to hear that. I want to kind of do a little live, hey, so, tell me how I get solar on my house and what's the benefit. We talked a little bit about inflation. Is there any benefit there? And what does the program look like? So I'm just super excited about getting them in here. And we always have a ton of fun when Tad's here.
Scott Morris, how can people reach you?
You can find me on them interwebs. Google Scott Morris Mortgage, and I will pop up, and tons of great reviews. You can, the number that you see listed is my cell. Don't hesitate to text, call, email, smoke signal, whatever you got to do.
He's on social media everywhere. You have great reviews. You have basically a 5 stars and 68 reviews. That's legitimate. So when you have that many reviews and that kind of rating, you're doing something right. Scott Morris of Ross Mortgage, Keith Smith of Yes Realty Partners, Judah Wickower of just great
man
company.
behind the scenes.
Great company called I Love CVille.
The Incredible Oz.
My name is Jerry Miller.
Look at that laugh.
I love Judah. He's been doing great. He's really been,
He's
been blossoming.
Yeah, the noon shows, you guys
You've
are
been doing
great.
so great, Judah. It's just been like the butterfly, the caterpillar transformation over here.
I've got somebody who's going to come on in a couple weeks against her will in place of me, and she's going to kill it. She doesn't know it yet.
Who is it?
Tova Payne.
Okay.
She's licensed. She's on the team.
Yeah.
She's
Look
super
forward to it.
excited if she's listening to this.
You're coming on. Get ready.
That's right.
All right, guys. That's the show. It's archived at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. Realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. Click the partners tab and check out the partners that are just the trusted names in real estate. The I Love CVille show is up in 1 hour, and it's going to be a doozy. Thank you kindly for joining us. Take care.
A doozy. I love the doozy. Great word.
Nicely done, gentlemen.
Thank you for your understanding of me showing up late.